Hi YouTube, Darth here. This is Over Your Shoulder, a series where I follow unsuspecting players and give unsolicited advice and commentary. Today's victim is Manchild, a level 129 with some pretty decent stats with no particular preference towards one thing. Today's match is around a Pearl Market on Hardcore, an infantry-focused map I'm very familiar with as I did a battle plan a few weeks back about this particular map. As I spectate Manchild today, I'll talk about all the good things, bad things, and things I might do differently. So let's take a look over Manchild's shoulder. Alright, on the ground Manchild, SAR-21 on Pearl Market. He's going to have some difficulty with that. SAR-21 typically a long-range weapon. Pearl Market, mostly all about short range. I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out for him. Might just have been a bad pick. Alright, getting back into first person, we are heading on the way towards what looks like Alpha. Nope, breaking towards Echo. Now, as I was saying earlier, it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to use the SAR-21 on a map that's particularly well suited towards close quarters encounters. The SAR-21 is particularly well suited to long-range encounters, but you can make up for that with the hip fire bonuses that bullpup weapons get. Now we can see that this flag was in motion, so we know their enemy's right here, just like that. Takes him out with the hip fire, aims down sight for that guy, gets another quick kill. Sitting on that health pack is going to get him back to health pretty quickly, which is kind of nice. Although that big bag has seen a little bit of a hit from the last patch simply because you no longer heal while you're suppressed, so you don't get that benefit while you're directly in combat with somebody. Although it is nice on hardcore to constantly be dropping that down just to make sure you're healed up for the next one because you can't take as many hits as normal. Now I probably wouldn't be putting myself directly on top of that spot right there simply because there are so many angles that you could have been shot at from an enemy. I usually like to leave at least one of my sides covered so I don't have to worry about all four directions, and we can see that the point is moving so we know that at least one enemy is here. Rather than putting myself up on the roof, which makes me a slightly easier target, I'd probably be trying to look in the stairwells and see if I can find an enemy. Almost Texas friendly out there. You can see over there in that stairwell that we saw that enemy and he takes him out. Nice reaction time on Manchild's part. Looks like he's chucking a grenade. RGO at the staircase that the enemies just came up. Right here, picks up a squad mate and takes down an enemy. I'm guessing that got called out on TeamSpeak. There's another quick tip. If you're near your friendlies, be sure to call out any enemies that down you because they might be able to take care of it and res you at the same time. Speaking of which, this entire squad in the staircase just got called out and mulched by Manchild. You didn't see the kills in the center feed, but they were up there in the top right. Rather than plunge down the stairs with a slow-firing weapon and try to heads up everybody that could be looking up the stairs, I think in that case I might have actually just jumped off the side and then come up the stairs and tried to take them from behind rather than front on, especially with a slow-firing weapon. And you get surprised by a recon here, manages to take him out finally with that hip-fire bonus. Recon just couldn't land any of those deagle shots. Oh, and manages to get caught from behind the billboard. So pretty good early run at Echo for Manchild here. Let's take a look at the tabletop and see what we've got going on. Looks like the United States team is getting dominated pretty easily. A couple of guys not paying attention there get picked off. Manchild's trying to push up on Delta here. One of the few points that he has, loses that heads-up fight because the SAR-21 can just not compete at close range. And that's really what happens when you bring a long-range weapon to a close-quarters fight. If the enemy knows you're there and you have a heads-up fight, you're just going to lose it. In any case, the SAR-21 is not well-suited to running guns, so you might have wanted to just slow-play that a little bit more. Catches that guy's report from his gun, then manages to take him out after hitting him with a grenade. Keep in mind that impact grenades are much more lethal on hardcore than they are on normal because of the reduced health pool. That impact grenade, which is usually just annoying on normal, is lethal on hardcore. And he catches that guy before he can respond. He's doing a much better job now of sticking to cover as he tries to work towards this point. Manchild is doing a pretty good job here at clearing the room. He's taking a look around at every possible angle and corner that enemies could be here and making sure he clears them before moving on. This is also a little room that the enemies like to hang out in for no apparent reason. He's got a little bit of an advantage here against the American team simply because all the chain link walls are still down. As a Chinese team, you want to make sure to lower those because that limits the number of ways that the American team can get into this gimme point. Sorry about a little time lapse there. The server decided I was AFK and decided to kick me out. Very strange for a spectator to be AFK. Anyways, moving on. A little bit of rooftop action here. Again, I probably wouldn't be sitting directly on the rooftop because of all the angles that you could possibly be shot at. I think sitting on the rooftops gives you an advantage if you know your enemies are coming, but if you don't know where they are, they have an equal chance of finding you before you find them. Let's see if he sees that enemy up in the right corner. He does. Manages to use this weapon in its actual intended range of mid to long. One of the few occasions you'll get for that on Pearl Market. It pays to have aim skills over your enemies when you have a weapon that relies on aim. Doing a lot of shifting back and forth. Let's see what he's actually using on this. He's got the angled grip and the heavy barrel, which is a good combination for aiming. And he's making great use of hip fire there simply by holding his shots and not aiming down sight when he's close to a target. That is the strength of the bullpup weapon. And it's okay to shift back and forth while you're shooting if the enemy is actively targeting you. Otherwise, it really makes your shots inaccurate. Taking a quick peek at the tabletop, it looks like the American team has actually managed to take charge of this map for the first time since the start. There's still about a 200, 250, 60 point difference, so it's going to be real hard for them to turn around at this point. So in addition to constantly dropping enemies at points, MANCHILD is also constantly dropping health packs for himself and his team, which is a decent habit for hardcore if you're in a safe position. However, if you're going to keep moving as MANCHILD is, you might want to consider a small first aid kit, that's the little bag, since you can keep healing on the move. And he's not really playing near his squad, so the big bag isn't quite as useful. So MANCHILD does a good job here of checking both lanes before crossing the street, which is something I pointed out in my video. It looks like a little bit of crossfire here, almost takes out his friendly there, looking for where this guy particularly went. Ninja appears, manages to take him out with the hip fire. I'm guessing that guy was trying to knife MANCHILD, and there's a perfect example of why you don't knife somebody and you just take your shot so you don't miss opportunities. That guy certainly didn't right there. Alright, back on MANCHILD. It looks like we spawned at Echo. A lot of people always come up to this roof when they spawn at Echo. This is probably one of the more common spawn points for Echo. Closes that so his teammates don't have to deal with any surprises. Looks like we are cutting over to Charlie to try and defend it. Popular point for the American team to try and attack on this map, as I did note on my video as well, my battle plan for Pearl Market. This is probably one of the better points for the American team to try and get back in the game, simply because it's somewhat easier to defend because of the multiple levels. Taking a little bit of safety here. It's a little bit exposed to the top there, but usually your threats are in the other cubby over here. Starting to take a look up here, see if we can find anything. I'd probably be working my way up to the top or trying to follow up with those shots that I was just hearing. Looks like we chose to go up to the top. You could step out on that ledge and that might give you a little bit of a better advantage. Again, in hardcore, I'd probably definitely be using a weapon that's more suited towards close quarters combat, like a auto shotgun or perhaps a AEK, if we're going to be playing the assault class. Always closing those things so you don't get a nice nasty surprise coming at you. MANCHILD misses the sniper rifle crack. He needs to get out of position or he's going to get his face shot off. Looks like we're back up, and we are currently between, what 2 points is that? That is Delta and Alpha. Basically the two gimmies for the American team. Here's an American voice and comes looking for it. Being able to hear your enemies is definitely a very important skill to have on hardcore. I'm curious to see how that changes after DICE's changes from the CTE go live, where you can no longer hear callouts from the enemy team. And as you can see, it was effective there for finding that enemy. That's actually a good question for you guys. How do you feel about callouts and what should be done about them? Be sure to leave a comment below talking about that. Doing some good follow-up, clearing off these rooftops. Not playing the objective right now, but it doesn't really matter. Definitely not looking good for the US team here. They're kind of getting rolled. The Chinese team, between MANCHILD and his teammate buddies, have been doing a really great job of just knocking them off the point every time they try to get onto it. There was a little bit of a high tide there at the 400 point mark, but the American team hasn't found any momentum simply because they haven't been able to hold on to any points. And it looks like the American team is getting 5-capped here, doing a little bit of back and forth on the rooftops, looking for any potential runners or targets. Probably the only threat right now. Taking a look at the tabletop where we've got most of the American team, most of them are down at Alpha. So I'd probably be making my way towards that particular direction. But I'm an action junkie, so putting myself in the enemy team sometimes gets me and my squad in trouble. Again, checking all those corners, great habit to get into. Heard a little bit of fighting over here. It looks like the enemies have been taken out because that friendly is still there. Can't always trust that, but generally that's a good way to figure out if there's somebody in the room. Looks like we have the Amtrak up over there. Don't want to get close to that because we're assault. Oh, look at this. Merry Christmas. Oh no, ran out of bullets. Good use of smoke on the enemy's part to cover the what would have been a near death. Again, great use of the hip fire there and gets taken out. What happened there? He got defibrillated. Nice. Alright, in the Chinese team's RV, he comes out of it, starts pushing towards the point, gets mulched by his teammate. Oh no, oh that's a squad mate too. Let's see if he picks up that kit and reses him, getting shot at. Oh, and reses him, but gets mulched by the RV. No luck. Closing in on the end of the game, taking a ride in the RV. Americans really don't have much of a choice. Defends his teammates there. Didn't quite see that support chasing them. Finds a guy taking a nap, shoots him right in the butt. There's really not a whole lot to say here. The U.S. team has just been completely and utterly dominated. And there's been a lot of great gameplay from MANCHILD, who's been really covering the angles and just taking it to the enemy team in pretty much every way possible. Again, great use of the hip fire on the the bullpup weapon. That really is a key skill to have when you're using a bullpup weapon, is to know when to aim down sights and when to simply use the hip fire. The hip fire is nice on these weapons, and it's definitely one of their biggest strengths in using them. Weapons like this, the AUG, the Bulldog, the difference between the aiming down sights and the hip fire is a fair bit of time in taking out your enemies. Right there was sort of a mid-range, so the aiming down sights was not a bad call. But if you had closer than 15 meters per se, you would definitely want to simply hip fire your your enemies. Looks like we're wrapping up this game. Let's take a quick last look at the tabletop. The American team looks like they've been in charge of the alpha point for pretty much the whole game. I'd probably be trying to focus a little bit more on there. Get surprised in the cutaway here. That's probably going to be the last we see of MANCHILD before the end of the game. And by the way, you can open those. Oh, right in the face. And that is the end of this round. That's it for this round of Over Your Shoulder. MANCHILD played a very solid round where he was continuously pushing towards objectives in motion, and he helped contribute to his team's crushing victory over the US team. He demonstrated an adept ability at when to hip fire and when to aim down sights, which is particularly important for bullpup weapons to get you that little advantage. This is particularly necessary on Pearl Market, where the SAR-21 is not well suited to the close quarter situations on this map, so you have to get as much value out of the bullpup hipfire bonus as possible. If I were to make any recommendations to MANCHILD, it would be to be careful what angles you expose yourself to, as there were a number of times where you were on the rooftop and open to all sides. This actually cost you at least once. Additionally, he might have been leveling it, but the SAR-21 is probably not the best weapon for a CQB map like Pearl Market. But otherwise, great job. If you'd like to be featured on a future episode of Over Your Shoulder, get in contact with me or friend me on Battlelog, and I'll try to spectate you if I see you online. If there's something you'd like to see me highlight in a future episode, be sure to mention it in the comments below. If you're new around here, check out my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.